All right, so that's 1 minute past the hour, so let's get going. Thank you everybody for joining. Today we're going to talk about bringing SCOM overrides, Sprawl under control with Power BI, in particular with Sankey diagrams. So let's dig in. But first, I'm Bruce Cullen. I'm the Director of Products here at Kickdown, so hello if this is your first time of coming across me. So before we dig into specifically dashboards and diagrams and whatnot, let me just paint you a picture. So, in your company, the very final SQL 2008 server is being decommissioned. Hooray! Cause for celebration. This means you can pull out all of the old monitoring, so the SQL 2008 monitoring management pack, because all of the replacement SQL servers are monitored with the new shiny SQL version agnostic management pack. Good news. That should be easy, right? It's just a case of pulling out the old 2008 MP and you're in business. But there's one issue there. In order to pull out any MP, nothing can depend on it. And what's the number one source of dependencies? It's going to be obviously overrides, meaning it's very, very unlikely that you'll have no dependencies at all when you're looking to pull out your monitoring management pack. So, fair enough, let's have a look. So we've got a bunch of override management packs here. Surely some of those won't be too bad. We can just delete those, right? Well, sometimes the answer to that question is yes, but very often the answer is also no. So in this example here, great, we have the SQL 2008 monitoring overrides management pack. Assuming that everybody over the many, many years since this was created has done the right thing and only stored overrides in this relating to SQL 2008, then yes, this one should be safe to delete. But the reality is usually different. There are usually MPs that are less well structured and ordered, that contain overrides, causing a dependency. My favourite random bago bits MP, and of course the ever-present default MP. These guys, well, who knows what's in them? There could be overrides in them for SQL 2008 and other things. So we can't simply delete them. We have to have a look at what's inside them and figure out the dependencies and unpick it all first. Even worse in the case of the default management pack. Here, here really is the realm of dragons. You can't simply delete the default management pack. It's used by the core system of SCOM. What we need to do is understand really what is inside each of these override management packs. And a really good way of doing that is to use the all-seeing eye of Power BI to shine a bit of light on what's in these management packs. And we're going to do this using Sankey diagrams. So I know Sankey diagrams are not sort of super common. So I'm going to just give you a little bit of background as to what a Sankey diagram is by showing you an example of one I stole from the internet. So this is an example of one showing energy usage, for example. They are a type of flow diagram, essentially. They place emphasis on size. So in other words, the bigger the line, the more, in this case, energy is used by the things to the right of the arrow. They're directional, obviously. And really important point, but the width of the arrows represents how much energy in this case is being used. So this is 300 kilowatt hours worth of electricity, and this is the delta, essentially. So you can see how things relate, but basically emphasis on size is an important point. They're often used in the realms of energy management, as in this example, but they're used all over the place, and we can use them in SCOM. So this is a screenshot of our Power BI diagram that we're going to be working with today, showing you this in SCOM. What we're looking at here is on the left hand side we have the management packs that contain the actual monitoring, and on the right hand side we have the scope, what the overrides in question apply to. Specific instances, classes, groups, etc. all there. And then in the middle we have our override management pack. And in this case, this is a real example from my lab. I didn't knock this one up for this webinar. This is a management pack I created at some point while tire kicking to store some overrides in it relating to turning on discovery of physical disks. Sounds sensible. I gave it a good name, more or less. But then I stuck a load of other junk in there too. So this is really quite a bad example, a good example rather, of what to not do. But a real example from our actual lab. So there we are. I think it's time to do a bit of pruning in my lab and to show you the power of the Sankey diagram in action. So let's dig into a demo. And for this I will need this guy. So what we're looking at here is our Power BI diagrams. There are a number of tabs here showing you the same data, different slants on the same data, depending on what you want to put emphasis on. But the view I tend to prefer here is the one that has the monitoring MPs on the left, the override MPs in the middle, and the scope on the far right hand side. And initially it looks like spaghetti. There's lots of lines going everywhere, but obviously this data can be sorted and filtered so we can actually make sort of sense of this. Before we dig into like how it works, I just want to quickly show you setting it up because it's really simple and I'll forget otherwise. This will be a download at the end of the webinar. So if you go to transform data and edit parameters, you can put in here your own SQL server and the database. This is the SCOM operations database, and we're connecting directly to it to pull this data to visualize. Then you'd hit refresh and it would effectively ask you to authenticate. I'm not going to do it now. You have probably done this before to see this in operation. So you can use this in your own environments. And remember, the thing that's really important here is the weight. The size of this bar indicates that in my SCOM lab, this management pack, which is SQL Server, the version agnostic one, is the management pack that contains the most overrides. In fact, 4,660 odd, 4.66K's worth. And if I click it, I'll see where exactly those overrides are stored, which is great. Again, there's a mixed bag in here. Some of these override MPs are sensibly named, like this one here. If I click on this one, you'll see this one has a single target. In this case, it's a single instance, which has 2,700 and odd overrides targeting it. And it overrides this SQL version agnostic monitoring management pack, also the discovery one and the SQL core library one. So it's relatively safe to kind of delete. You get a good deal of insight there. Whereas something like, what else have we got in here? Let's see. Oh, these are not too bad. This one could be potentially a bit tricky. Custom destination MP for overrides. Just by its name, it's not sort of sensible. So it could contain all kinds of fun. But again, clicking on it, we can see, there's the SQL discovery MP, the SQL monitoring MP. What's this guy at the top here? SQL visualization library. All right. So again, pretty safe to delete, applying to a specific instance again. What else do we have? My BC physical disks overrides. This is true spaghetti. And just by clicking on it, you can see I can't really see what's going on here. So next, to kind of get a bit more visibility, we're going to do a bit of filtering, which is why we have all this stuff on here. In the underlying data, there is a table called contains MP, which I'm going to use for a bit of filtering. It's here. This essentially contains the values of the source and the destination MP separated with a comma. I'm going to search it advanced filtering style because I want to search it for contains BC physical, and this will filter out everything that doesn't have something to do with my BC physical disks override MP. There we go. So this is true land of horrors stuff here. So if I was going to pull out my SQL management pack here, this guy here, I definitely can't simply delete this. There's just so much else in here. So I've got some manual, work to do. Obviously, you don't want to get into this situation, in the first place. And I'll talk about how you can prevent getting here in the first place. But what's kind of really, really useful about using Sankey diagrams here is at least I can see what I'm sort of trying to chase down. So if you were to do the sort of weeding in the SCOM console, now I know this is the MP in question and this is the sort of stuff. I know I can't just simply delete it. In the SCOM console here, now I'm looking at the authoring pane, I'm on overrides, and I filtered it to the classes that I know are the ones in my monitoring that I care about in my SQL management pack to see which overrides actually live in this thing. And there's only one, which is great, but obviously in order to sort of really action this, we're going to need to obviously dig into this a bit deeper. We're going to need to either move the override we want to lose out of this MP so this MP can live on. But really the right answer is a bit of proper gardening and separating out the overrides that are in here into more sensibly named management packs based on what exactly the overrides are for. So one for SQL, one for security monitoring, let's say, one for Unix because it's in front of me. And that is manual gardening. Obviously, in an ideal world, you wouldn't get here in the first place. So I said I'd talk a bit about that. If I just take this filter out and show you some examples again for SQL. So some of these are named really, really sensibly, like this one here. This management pack is called SQL version agnostic overrides. So you can tell from the name, at least what it's supposed to contain. You can also see that in terms of its target, it's a single target, not stuffed, targeting lots of different, with lots of different scopes essentially. And this was created using a free product that we make called EasyTune. That's all about tuning SCOM's alerting capabilities. It programmatically creates the management pack containing the overrides and gives it a sensible name so that you can easily see, what's going on. The other thing that EasyTune will do is the management packs that are created. If I just quickly go into the admin pane and show you one. Install management packs. There we go. We'll find the SQL ones down here. One of these guys. So they've got sensible names. If I pull one open, you'll see in the description, you can see who created it. My colleague Nathan did this back in September. If you go onto the knowledge tab, you can see everything that's in it. Hooray! So as long as what is on here is kind of true and hasn't been manually mucked around with, then you can see what's in here. So you know whether this needs to live on or not, which is really, really valuable. There's loads more stuff to talk about with EasyTune, but I'm not going to spend too long on EasyTune because there's plenty of other content out there on EasyTune. I just wanted to kind of quickly touch on it here. And really this is all about the Sankey PowerBI diagram. So you get a good feel for it here. They're really easy to set up, as I say. All you need to do is point the diagram at your database and you will get something like this, which you can filter and sort using these bits and pieces down the right hand side. So I think you'll agree it's a really valuable tool, but what's more important than seeing the mess is preventing the mess in the first place. And how do you do that? Well, a good process for how you store overrides in MPs is kind of really, really important. And part of that is a sensible naming convention. And ultimately then governance over all of these things. So in other words, if your convention is we create management packs for every piece of monitoring by management pack or by scope, then whatever it is, it needs to be documented. Everyone needs to stick to it, and the naming convention needs to be followed, which is the governance piece. Because it's all well and good having a process, but if no one's actually following that process, it's all kind of a bit pointless really, and you'll still end up in the mess that I've shown you with my actual example. So an alternative to this is, or rather a product that will help with this is EasyTune, because EasyTune will enforce all of these bits and bobs. It is really, really quick and easy to get going with EasyTune. It is 7% of the clicks and 98.4% quicker than doing all of your tuning using the native SCOM console. There's a blog on that there. It enforces by default consistent management pack naming and storage convention. We create a management pack for each scope and level pairing, which means as long as you accept the defaults, it's difficult to end up in a real mess. And so some examples here for global scope, group scope, and instance scope. So we have the name of the management pack or set of management packs, the technology group, the SQL version agnostic. You can tell from this name that overrides live inside these management packs. The scope is global. And if you've ever looked at EasyTune before, you'll be aware of the concept of levels, different levels of tuning contained within our tuning packs that we're going to be set as overrides in these management packs. Really, really useful. As I've shown you, there is a summary on the knowledge tab of everything that's in the MP. So no longer are you looking at an MP with a mystery name and no knowledge, no description and no understanding of what is in it. You can also tell when it was created and the NT user stamp of who actually did the tuning, which is great. But even with EasyTune in place, you can still get yourself in a mess if you did your initial tuning with EasyTune and then an admin came and stuck in some manual overrides and stored them in your nice EasyTune created tuning packs. Then you still have a problem. So governance is really, really important. EasyTune has governance in it. It will give you notifications, visual notifications, where the tuning you set up with EasyTune is not in effect. So in this case, we have tuning for SQL version agnostic management pack in place. At the group level, it's green, happy days, no problems. But then, well, rather for group 1 this is. But for my second group, you can see we've got a warning triangle here. So you can see there is some issue. If you were to click on the name of the level that we've tuned to, which is in this case the QA level, then you will see exactly what the issue is. So in this case, this workflow, we wanted it to be true, and it's set to false, which is the incorrect value, whatever this is. And if you double click on that, you can actually see the override that's been set and where it's stored. And obviously, if the person that had set this override up was nice enough to tell you what they'd done, you'd see that too. But ultimately, you can see what's going on, so you can see that your policy is in effect. And all of this leads to better ITSM, which is what I've been showing with my Sankey diagrams here. Because you have an override MP with each scope well understood. If you want to do some maintenance to one of these machines, let's say you want to do something with this ops 18DB, let's say you want to take some monitoring away from it, you can understand the impact of removing a management pack. If I was to remove my BC physical disks overrides management pack I showed you earlier, all the agents that have anything to do with it will receive a change, which is churn, config churn essentially. Whereas in this case, it's really, really clear what is impacted if I were to remove this management pack here. It's just the agent that this instance sort of lives on, which means that you're making fewer changes every change request. So you're doing better ITSM if you do this kind of right in the first place. And that's all I had to show. Relatively short and sweet. Today, the diagrams speak for themselves. So all that's left to say is EasyTune is free. You can go and get it from our website, go.cookdown.com/get EasyTune, get-easy-tune. And the Sankey diagrams I've shown you today are also free and can be downloaded from our website. There's a couple of blog articles on there and a download form, so you can download them and have a play for yourself. See where your overrides live, see if you've got a nice orderly SCOM deployment or chaos. So that's all there is to say, except we're in all the usual places on social media. If you wanted to get in contact with us, so LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and of course, good old-fashioned email. And unless there are any questions, that is us done. And see if there are any questions, which I will take now. All right, I will take silence to mean no questions. All right, in which case, thank you very much for coming to this webinar. Hopefully it makes sense. Do go and get the Sankey PowerBI diagrams from our website, go.cookdown.com/Sankey. They're free. And have a play, and I'm really keen to hear your feedback. They've helped us out a lot with our own labs, and hopefully they'll be useful for you guys as well. So thank you very much. Until next time, thanks guys.